Oh, good morning, Malcolm Nance.
It actually is a good morning.
Yes, I thought you would be chuckly this morning. You retweeted Ellie Mistal said the only way Republicans can win is if they don't let black people vote, right? And people voted, and God bless them, Malcolm. In the middle of this coronavirus scare, people turned out again in record numbers yesterday.
In record numbers, and I'm sorry to say it, but it is true that the most undercounted and underappreciated vote is the vote of the African American man and woman above the age of 45, and
We
we have
salute you.
turned out in numbers that exceeded Obama's in many areas.
Yeah.
So the pragmatism and belief that we have to help save the American democracy, and that took all of us. It came out and it showed, and now hopefully we can finish off these last few primaries and get to the task of hammering Donald Trump with that pragmatism.
Well, Malcolm, you've written obviously three books on this and warned before everybody else did, but not surprising, these two latest headlines. One I just did, Russia trying to stoke U.S. racial tensions before the election. And the last one, Russian state media freaks out over Biden's surge and urges Trump and the GOP to ramp up attacks. And this was before, obviously, this was like a week ago or so. And obviously, overnight, what was it? Bernie surge, Biden cognitive decline, whatever were trending. Just a time it would be morning in Moscow, right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so absolutely ridiculous because what we're seeing here is a continuation of a strategy that they thought worked very well in 2016. And that was to cause the Democrats to split along progressive lines, social lines, and then to split and help suppress the African American vote. That has now been called out. We've been calling that out for years,
Yeah.
and no
Well,
one is
thanks to
buying it
thanks to
anymore.
people like you, Malcolm, that's the difference. We're aware at least now, right?
Yeah, and we know that the Mueller report reported extensively what I had written in my books. African American target was designed for two purposes. One, to suppress the black vote. And I had this happen in my own barbershop where guys were saying, well, there's no difference between Trump and Clinton. And, I don't like Hillary. So what have I got to lose? Which was Trump's line. The Russians were pushing that. And the other one was to stoke racial tension between blacks and Trump voters by putting out lies that blacks were arming and being militant and were, forming karate clubs and silly things like that in order to come after white people.
Yeah.
These memes have been pushed so hard. Look, the Russians were good at doing this, launching it the first time. Now everyone's starting to call it out.
Right.
And and that's exactly what you need to do. Look, I respond with 200 laughy faces every time I see one of these things because ridicule is the actual best disinfectant for this.
Yeah. And you've been warning about this for a long time about them trying to gin up civil war. And
Yep.
the latest piece I'm reading, Russian government stepped up efforts to inflame racial tensions in the U.S. as part of its bid to influence November's election, including trying to incite violence by white supremacist group and stoke anger among African Americans. And you're right, same thing they did in 26, just 2.0, right?
Right. And, you got to start watching these white supremacist websites and terminology from some of these Trump voters. They have code words that they've been putting out there. Like when they use zombies, they're talking about black and brown people. When they use the phrase the boogaloo, the big boogaloo, that's a QAnon conspiracy term for the day that white civil war will be launched and that they will go and, take back America. Can I
Wow.
point out something to you?
Yeah.
When Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, he was actually following a written game plan that was in a book called The Turner Diaries. And he expected that by blowing that building up, that would be the code, the signal to launch an all-white race war where people in the military and the police were supposed to turn and mass murder blacks. They still believe this. And what we're seeing now is with the rejection of, the rise of Joe Biden and the rejection of Donald Trump. certainly in the polls. Now what we're seeing is they're getting worried. And unfortunately, though, these people still think that they control all levers of power in America.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going to show them they
Yeah.
don't.
No, I mean, I actually love the degree to which that was shoving it up Putin's ass
Yeah.
yesterday. The Daily Beast, I'm sure you read this, Malcolm. This is only a couple days ago. Russian media expert Julia Davis said the Kremlin is not pleased Joe Biden scored huge victories in Super Tuesday, is actively cheerleading Republicans and opening up new inquiries into he and his son. State media, she says, state media there have been confidently predicting the Democratic Party's nomination of Bernie Sanders, which would lead, they are sure, to the reelection of their favorite Donald Trump. One commentator on Russian television seems stunned when reporting Biden's wins, was sitting there in stunned silence. The pro-Kremlin newspaper complained that Biden rose from the ashes like a phoenix, prevailing in spite of the corruption scandals that have long been alleged and cultivated by Russians and Republicans concerning his son Hunter. She points out the state-controlled media has once again been hyping conspiracy theories about what do you call it, about Biden, describing Biden's reestablished lead as unexpected. Russian state TV predicted compromat will determine the outcome of the elections. Don't forget, Ukraine is hanging around Biden's neck along with Burisma. RT actively promotes conspiracy theories targeting Biden while lauding Trump's efforts to investigate his leading opponent. RT predicted Trump will win a second term, claimed Biden is cognitively unraveling. That's the other thing that's trending overnight. That Jill Stein is tweeting, that then Donald Trump is retweeting Jill Stein, tweeting a Russian theory.
Okay.
Yes.
First, everyone go to Twitter and follow at Julia Davis.
Yeah.
She is amazing. She's Russian. She translates and watches all the Russian state media.
Right.
She is an intelligence source to herself. Go tweet that Malcolm Nance told me to come here, because that information, as we see it from our opponents' feedback, we can see what their strategies are. Look, Fox News, Russia Today, Donald Trump, the Kremlin, Russian intelligence are all working in unison in terms of trying to speciate the propaganda sphere with all sorts of garbage. They are now scrambling to have to go back to the Hunter Biden thing. They thought they had put a knife in Joe Biden's back and that it had been finished. And they were ramping up the Bernie Sanders is a communist spy scenario. And boom, in a matter of a day, now a week, they have to completely re-engineer and go back to the Burisma thing. And the Republican Senate is working hand in hand with Russian intelligence. You know, that stuff has to be called out everywhere and anywhere loudly, because they're not going to stop this. The Russians are confident Trump is going to win the election because they fully intend to help him cheat and win the election. And what we have to do is what happened this week. Human wave this thing, blue wave, where the margins are blown out so bad they can go ahead and cheat and they'll still lose.
Yeah. Well, which brings me to Malcolm, the Washington Post. I want to ask you about this piece. Just as the primary season began, government watchdog warned the Trump administration it urgently needed to address problems with election security infrastructure. They were to finalize plans by January to support states and localities with their election security operations. That did not happen, according to the new GAO report. So during Super Tuesday, voting machine malfunctions, other technical problems combined with higher than expected turnout left some voters in Texas and California waiting hours to cast their ballots. The report indicates the federal government was not fully prepared to deal with the challenges that have developed in this still young election season. Cybersecurity agency officials say they are unlikely to develop plans for election security assistance to political parties or come up with strategies for raising public awareness about foreign threats. Moreover, they've not developed plans for how they will address all of these challenges. The League of Women Voters said the findings in this report are highly problematic. Cyber threats have only evolved since 2016. More needs to be done to safeguard our elections and protect our democracy. It's a mistake for this administration not to have more proactive measures to address the underlying problems. Well, obviously, they're assuming it's all going to help them. Right?
Absolutely. What you're watching here is you are watching the deliberate disarming of American democracy. They want these activities to occur. They have taken away all safeguards. The Republican Senate, the Republicans in the House, Donald Trump's administration. And let me tell you, if it wasn't for the day-to-day workload at NSA and DOD, there would be no safeguards whatsoever. A very obvious large scale cyber attack is not going to happen. It's the subtle things that will happen that we can't discern until after an election. So, Donald Trump knows that. They are working hand in hand with that. They don't have to coordinate with the Russians. All they have to do is see what the Russians are saying and then do the opposite that would defend the democracy here. So, listen, I don't worry about that because now I am almost confident that our next Attorney General, Glenn Kirshner, will be investigating all of this and will be bringing people to account.
Yeah. I mean, look at this, the unredacted Mueller report we've been trying to get forever. I mean, it is only a matter of time. I believe what Glenn says, the justice is coming. I mean, this, as we keep saying, Malcolm, here we go again with them not wanting us to hear from intelligence professionals or, oh, they're wrong, the ones trying to warn about this pandemic and trying to, do something about this. It's just we are in this bubble where Trump thinks he can tweet and bully and lie his way out of a global pandemic, and he can't, right?
No, he can't. And reality is already coming up to bite not just him in the butt, but everyone else. I had a friend today tell me that she had an Airbnb or a VRBO, this rental in Colorado, and she was warned that if she goes on that trip to see her grandkids, she would be quarantined for 2 weeks coming back. And now the owner of that space was a Republican, and he said, oh, well, it's just the flu. It's not the flu.
Yeah.
What we are looking at is a deadly disease, which we don't know anything about. We don't even have the ability to test for it at a large scale. So we don't know what level it's infecting or killing American citizens.
There's the other scandal, Malcolm, by design. It seems like they're preventing testing because, as he said out loud, I want to keep the numbers low. I don't want my numbers to be bad. I mean, this is yeah, go ahead.
Glenn's going to be busy next year.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that whether, it could be, it may not be, criminal malice, but it is definitely criminal negligence. And to be quite honest, I would start looking for those mass lawsuits in which things that could have been prevented weren't prevented out of the ignorance and incompetence, utter incompetence of this administration, to the point where Donald Trump himself and his moron son are out there calling this a Democratic hoax. Even as of, yesterday morning?
Yeah.
I mean, these people are dangerous. And the best thing you can do, ignore Donald Trump and only listen to your state and local authorities.
Thank you. Chris and I were just saying that some of these briefings, they marginally make you feel better when Trump isn't talking, but then you don't even know if we're still getting inaccurate information. Despite vows to drastically expand the coronavirus testing regime, federal, state, and public authorities have only tested 6,563 people as of yesterday morning. That number stands in stark contrast to promises made by leading members of the Trump administration who variously asserted that 75,000 people would be tested by week's end and that laboratories would have the capacity to conduct 1.5 million tests by the beginning of this week. Neither claim appears to be close to being realized. So while certainly even Pence, I never thought I'd say this, seems more adult and calming, and you're like, but is he giving us the right information?
He said yesterday there'd be 4 million tests by the end of this week. We know that's not true. Right?
Yeah, that's bull.
Let me tell you right now, I just came from Louisville, Kentucky, where they have a center of excellence for the study of infectious diseases. And while I was there, I met the president of University of Louisville that is leading and spearheading the development of their own test kits and their own work, which will supplement CDC's. Because you have to remember, CDC, by direction of the administration, did not want the World Health Organization's testing regime. They developed their own.
Yeah.
And now other states like New York State and places like Kentucky, let me tell you, when I was there, their local TV channel, I can't remember the name, WDRB or something.
Right.
Their local TV channels briefing about the third person in Kentucky that had coronavirus, what you should do, was brilliant. And now, do I have to remind you, they have a brand new Democratic governor. And that state is on if that state's prepared now. They're
Yeah.
getting prepared.
Yeah.
New York State, Andrew Cuomo, not playing games with this
No,
thing.
that's what I have to hope.
The
Now, when I said
states
that, I
and
said
local municipalities will be the heroes.
Yes, I said that at the top of the show. That's what we're listening to for Sexy Liberal Tour. Do not listen to the president. Biden said he should just be quiet. Listen to the experts, right? You know, whether it's a state, local mayors, governors, and the health experts are going to be our guide, because this is just terrifying, because it's all of us. You have to hope that they will stem this, because we are Americans. We proved that last night. We will turn out record numbers. We will stop this. But also, like, you have to hope the experts that are in there, right, federal, state, and local, that we can contain this despite him. You know, and go ahead.
Well, the American public is stepping up to this. And the reality is being held by 60% of this country. And I fear, and I just heard that on radio yesterday. I think it was, Tucker Carlson was still talking about it as just the flu. Okay, it's not. It's an unknown pathogen, which is being born out like the flu. So we don't know how it's going to behave. I think this country is going to pull together. Their common sense is going to happen. And what we're going to do is, we are not going to play, this virus, needs a wall game.
Yeah.
I gave this speech on Monday, and I said, coronavirus doesn't care whether you're Republican, Democrat, or independent.
Thank you.
Okay?
And by the way, can I say real quick, because I'm going to visit my 97-year-old Fox News watching, Trump voting mom. And she's not scared, but I realize, that's because you're watching Fox News and being told this is nothing, even though she's 97 and obviously compromised. But Gabe Sherman, who wrote this book about Ailes, said Ailes was a real sicko, but he didn't put stuff like that on the air to straight up kill his viewers. He said Fox News' coronavirus coverage will straight up kill people. I mean,
did you see that video by Trish Regan? Is that her name?
Yes.
Good God, Kim Jong-un of the West.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, she should really be on North Korean state television. I've never seen anything so insane.
I know.
So much like a communist propagandist with the ginormous Farrah Fawcett hair.
Thank you. Wait a minute.
Talking about how Democrats wanted to kill Americans and deliberately are spreading this virus.
Yes, the best thing you can do is put a Fox blocker on your parents' television or your grandparents. Malcolm, we're way long. Love you. We're all going to die. Thank you.
Okay, but when you see your ma, stay there for 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Okay.